We were, yes, some of our teams were focused on working in Agile Scrum, but there was a limited amount of them. There was only 2 or 3 teams at the time, and we weren't able to get change through the system very easily. We had a real bad code base. We were lucky if we could release once every 2 to 4 weeks. Test deployments 1 to 2 hours, production deployments over 2 hours, all manually driven. In general, the standard of our quality was good, all things considered, but we weren't really releasing very often. So it's kind of relative in that nature. And also the culture around quality was very much, that's the QA's job, right? That is where those guys need to focus, and they can tell us what's wrong. And from a monitoring perspective, again, it was very reactive. Oh, we've got a problem, we need to fix it, rather than us identifying that we had a problem early. It generally would come from our customers or people using the site. So fast forward to 2019, and the move towards the new architecture. So we wanted to go microservice, we wanted to use cloud technology, and we wanted to be API driven. So the decision was also made to go with AWS serverless tech. Now for Dunelm, that was a massive decision because nobody had really, nobody in the organization had done it before. It was a bit of a leap of faith. But it was a risk we were determined to make. And one of the big things that has come out of this transformation is we are now the second largest user of AWS serverless tech in the world, behind Nike. So that is something that is obviously we're very proud of. And it shows the investment that we've had into our technology platform and our innovation. So in 2019, we went through that process of moving across to this new architecture. There was a lot of challenges along the way. We had to reshape our teams and so on and so on. But in 2019, we actually were able to launch the first version of the new Dunelm.com platform. It wasn't all singing or dancing. We shifted a lot of tech or a lot of the platform over to new tech. So as I mentioned, we were using AWS Lambda. We'd rewritten everything in Node.js, React front end, but we did have still some, even though we were using, everything was in AWS, we were still using some of the legacy tech. So we still had some of our old and most important components, like our basket and checkout, still in PHP, using old stack. So that was something that we took a conscious decision to go after and release. But what it gave us more value than the risks behind it. So, enabled us to start releasing more frequently, value to our customers. So on average, we were releasing 20 times a week. The teams were very delivery focused at this point because they were trying to deliver the platform. So again, there was challenges around quality. It was a little bit varied. And they kind of got themselves into this mindset of, well, we're not delivering to production, so it's okay if we have issues. And that is always a challenge when you're delivering a new platform, you're releasing into a production environment, but that production environment isn't visible to the world. So you kind of get yourselves into a few bad habits. So obviously when we launched, we had to start thinking about how we would change that. In terms of our ways of working, we were utilizing Agile, Scrum and Kanban. We had loads of teams, lots and lots of teams. We adopted the Spotify model at the time. So we broke out into tribes and squads. And we scaled out quite dramatically. The teams are component facing teams. So they were very much focused on specific components. And in terms of how often we released, as I mentioned, 20 times a week. But our releases were still quite slow. They were still quite cumbersome. They were still quite manual, in reflection. And the quality, as I mentioned, was still very varied. Fast forward to 2020, and obviously, continually improving on not only the platform but our ways of working, improving our tech. We took out a lot of those remaining legacy tech. So by 2020. We got rid of the PHP stack. October 2020, we got rid of the PHP stacks. We started launching new, all our AWS serverless tech. We joined forces with LambdaTest. That was actually in April 2020. I'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit later. We joined forces with Datadog from a monitoring perspective, and we also joined forces with Fastly from a CDM perspective. And all these things have helped us continue to build the platform. Our monitoring is better. We've got better CDN provider. We've got better third parties that we're working with that can help support the speed of change that we want to deliver. And that's where LambdaTest has been great for us. And again, from a ways of working, it hasn't really changed in terms of the frameworks that we're using. We're still using Scrum and Kanban, but our teams have got a different mindset now. They're very much focused on the quality side, but delivering that quality at speed. Yes, there's still some challenges, but the mindset is aligned. So all our engineers, all our quality engineers, our product owners, BAs, all those guys are very much aligned in terms of we need to deliver a quality product to our customers. In terms of releases, we're releasing up to 40 times a week, around about 200 times a month on some of our key pipelines. On average, production deployment duration across our pipelines is around 30 minutes. Some of those are doing continuous deployment. Some are still doing continuous delivery. We have different variations of maturity, but this is all stuff that we continue to work on. The quality has been, up to October has been outstanding. We started to notice a few little cracks building in because we're doing so much change and we want to drive at such speed. And again, we're having to reflect back and look at how can we improve those things. So, we're not sitting on our laurels and going, yeah, we've got the best thing in the world and we're not going to keep improving it. We know if we drop our guard, we're gonna have some problems. So that's a very kind of whirlwind tour of what we've done over the last few years, and we'll talk a bit more about that in the Q&As a bit later. So other than the underlying tech, what else had to change? So I mentioned that obviously ways of working was a key thing, but also ways of working had to change. Our tooling had to change, and the biggest thing was our culture and mindset that had to change. So from a ways of working perspective, we had to get better at Scrum and Kanban, for example. And again, these things are generally thought as the easy part. They're not. It involves people, and people can be challenging, and people have different mindsets, which is great. But obviously just trying to get people working collaboratively, looking at how we focus on process and highlighting change, and to enable and accelerate our delivery is really, really important when we've got a new platform that technically can handle change quickly. Tooling again is something that we've invested a lot of time and effort into, and that isn't just technical tools such as as I mentioned, Fastly, but in terms of tools that we use to collaborate. And so we use BDD, for example, as a means to collaborate within our teams and look at the behavior at which we want to drive through our development and to our customer. So it's not just all about the technical side of tooling, it's also about the human element of tooling as well, which can help drive those collaborations. We're looking at things like PACT in terms of contract consumer testing, and Adam will no doubt share a bit more around that later. And again, things like Gatlin, GitLab, all these different things that have helped us. But technology is great, but you still need the people and the mindsets to go with that, and that's where the cultural side and the mindset side of things comes in. So yes, we're more DevOps culture now. So we build it, we own it, we fix it. And that's a great place to be. That's been challenging in getting people on board with that type of mindset and coaching them and building them up to be that way. But we encourage and support innovation. We've got a great, diverse, inclusive culture and team base at Dunelm now, and it's just great to see the different ideas that come out. We are actively celebrating a failure within, so we know that failure is not a bad thing, it's a means to learn, and we don't have blame cultures or anything like that, which is amazing. But again, it's people need to feel safe to be able to fail. So building that psychological safety is really, really important. And also I mentioned a number of times around continuous improvement, and that's something that we need to have, else we'll fall behind again. And if you haven't got a fun place to work, you don't want to come to work, right? So that's again a massively important thing that we've been focusing on. Also, from a quality perspective, we've had to really focus on how shifting that mindset around quality. So looking at how quality is owned by the entire team. Yeah, not just the quality advocate within the team. Yes, they're the champions of quality, but the whole team takes the ownership, and the whole team should be representing, a quality product to the customer, and own that. So what we've done around this is we've spent a lot of time as a chapter really trying to look at different, firstly identifying a quality narrative. So how do we talk about quality at Dunelm, and what does it mean to Dunelm? And then also looking at underlying quality engineering principles, behavioral values, and the foundational side of things to enable things to happen. So, for example, looking at our quality engineering practices, bringing quality and engineering together, right? So how do we engineer with quality in mind? And, with our quality engineers on our SDETs working collaboratively with our engineers, pairing a lot, and, just working together on the end solution. So looking at all those different factors there around, performance, testability, automation, all these things that we talk about when we're trying to engineer a new solution. The behavioral side of things as well. So that's as, if not more important than the actual engineering principles themselves. So if we don't have the right behaviors in our teams and the right mindsets, it's really difficult to make these things work. And, if you think over the last year with COVID, we've been onboarding a lot of new people, which is amazing, but it's also been very difficult for people to collaborate and get to know each other and build those relationships, which are really important. And if you look at the foundational pieces around team structures, ways of working, how we coach and mentor, tooling, looking at our test architect, there's a whole host of things that we've had to think about, because the tech side of things is one thing, the people side, the mindset side is another. And from a quality perspective, it's really, really important that those things are dealt with. So we've spent a lot of time and investment in that, and we're still building that. We're still maturing it. But the guys here on the call with me have played a massive part in this, and I can't thank them enough, to be honest. So once we bring the tech together, we look at the culture of quality. We're really focusing on how we shift left and right. Okay, so a lot of people talk about shifting left, and all the tools and the automation within CI that can come with that, and that's great, but that's not everything that we can do. So really, when we talk about shift left and shift right at Dunelm, where the pipeline side, the tools, the automation is kind of the middle stage. When we talk about going left, we're going left of the pipeline. So what can we do earlier to collaborate? What can we do earlier to identify what it is we need to build and start building quality in at that point? Using tools and automation to help us do that through our pipelines. But then once we get into production, actually, how do we monitor? How do we observe? How do we get that feedback from our customers and use that and feed that back in? So we do a lot of experimentation in production. We're looking at, we do a lot of feature flag releases, to enable us to test stuff in production, which might sound scary, but also sometimes it's the best place to test, right? So Tommy will be able to talk a bit more about this later when but from a performance perspective for our peak within, when we launched the new platform and, last year, all the performance testing we were doing, all the load testing we were doing was in our production environment. Now, that gives us confidence that we're doing it and we're able to do it in a way that, we're not going to take the customer down. But also it's a true reflection of what the customer's going to see if it does go down. And it's a great way of determining how we recover as well. So yes, there's challenges there. Yes, there's, risk, but the benefits as well that you get are really great. And that is a mixture of, tools, automation, culture, mindset, whole piece that goes into that. So it's really, really important to remember, all these things come together to make these things work. And it's not easy. It definitely isn't easy. So what benefits have we seen? So from a platform perspective, so we mentioned here we're deploying over 200 times a month. We're able to automatically scale and increase our availability quite easily. As I mentioned, from a DevOps perspective, we build it, we run it, we own it. Our culture is very much, find failure and recover quickly. So from a monitoring perspective, feature flag perspective, minimizing the impact, i.e. rolling out to percentage of customers at a time, that enables us to recover quickly and fix forward. We've had significant improvements around website page load, just on the nature of the tech we're using, but also we've continued to tune that, right? So we've introduced Fastly, which has helped. There's been a lot of work gone into actually tune, our AWS instances, what we're doing on the web app, and so on and so on. We can serve over 150% more traffic. So we've built our architecture around APIs, and obviously really we're focusing on how many calls can those APIs handle, and the volume of traffic that they can cope with. From a speed improvements perspective, we're seeing about 400, it's very precise, right? 472% across the entire platform, which is amazing, and homepage speeds of over 900%. Again, these are figures that we had, I think it was late last year, and some of these are improving, some of them are static, some of them are diminished slightly because we've put changes out that haven't quite performed how we expected. And that's fine. It's not a problem because we keep learning from that, and we just need to make sure that we're not allowing those things to be of a detriment or keep getting worse, for example. But we've also got a much better security, right? So that is really, really important with a digital platform that is now our only shop throughout COVID, and that is massively important to us. From a partnering with LambdaTest perspective, with the new platform, we really needed a partner in this space that would enable us to, support the speed at which we want to deliver, right? And that was really important. And with LambdaTest, they provide us with a much more robust solution than we've had before, and it enables us obviously to test a wider range of browsers and devices, and it's a speed that fits within our delivery timeframes. It integrated really well and easily with the tools that we were using around Test Cafe, Jenkins, and there are others that you've seen. But the ongoing support that we've received since joining LambdaTest has been exceptional. So, and this was one of the biggest things that we were always looking for in a partner, is that you can respond quickly to these issues, and 90% of any issues or questions that we have are resolved within a couple of hours, which is amazing, right? And the other great thing is, we've got a good relationship with the guys at LambdaTest, and they listen to what we're interested in, things of areas that we might be going after, and actually thinking about how they can build some of this stuff into their new features. So it does feel like there's a partnership there, and we're running hundreds of tests a week through LambdaTest. Now that might not sound like a lot in terms of some other organizations, but we're very precise in terms of the types of tests that we run, and obviously we're going for speed. So there's that balance between speed and quality that we're trying to hit, and that's massively important. And then finally, culture, right? So culturally, we've seen some massive changes, massive improvements, massive benefits. As I mentioned before, our culture is inclusive and diverse. That drives innovation. The collaboration has been brilliant. Yes, it's been challenging. Yes, there's you don't always agree, right? I'd be lying if we were saying everybody is always happy and always agreeing. But that's the idea of different minds, different ideas. You want to have those conversations. We're driving a culture of empowerment. So again, we want people to feel as though they're empowered to come up with new ideas. And to be honest, if we weren't in that way, the re-platform wouldn't have been as successful as it was, right? Because we had to rely on people and their ideas to help drive those changes and drive that forward. I mentioned fun earlier. I think that is really important as a cultural benefit. As I say, you don't want to come to work and not have fun, even regardless of how pressurized it is. And also, Dunelm as an organization is very, very friendly, right? It does feel like a family orientated company, and that has massively helped us as well, and we continue to drive that through. So that is a bit of a whirlwind tour of what we've done over the last few years. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand it back to Harshit and for questions to the panel. So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for the walkthrough. It was amazing, and we seem to have received a lot of questions already. So let's start off with the first one. It says, what are the adjustments that you made in your company when the pandemic started?
I'll take that.
Awesome, Ali.
Hi, everyone. Although I wasn't working for Dunelm at the time, but what I have seen within Dunelm, the main adjustment that they have made was the cultural change. And they had a lot of a good culture at the beginning, but they add more, where they gave more team autonomy, and each team, they have got their own ways of working. They have, they make their own decisions, and they kind of create a fun environment amongst them. The collaboration is really, one of those things that you can say that, I'm very proud to be part of this, company. And Dunelm is a place where, you get the support from day one. I joined Dunelm last December, and, I haven't met any of the team members, face to face. But again, I feel home, within the first week or so, because if there was the right, meetings that I was having, very short, half an hour, very kind of precise, and hit the target. And it was kind of like, if you need help from Team X, you can approach it easily, and you can get it the type of support that you need. You could, share ideas, and when you bring your idea into the table, everyone kind of takes on board. So you kind of get the bonding of the the teams that you're working with. I'm not sure whether Stuart or Adam or Tom would like to add.
Awesome.
I was just add a couple of more things, maybe about practicalities. I think prior to the pandemic starting, a lot of us were able to work from home anyways. So there wasn't like a huge technical challenge for the workforce to be able to work from home. I think maybe, I don't know if Stuart, there's something else you can add around just kind of on our warehouses, how the distancing, social distancing, and obviously we had to close all the stores. So all the emphasis was on the website. So there was I think we were in quite a good spot with the technology for the website. I think there were some other things that we were like social distancing on the shipping and things like that maybe had some challenges in the beginning.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for the first lockdown, for example, we were all, from a website perspective, we were all smiling, thinking, yeah, this is fine. Our website can deal with this. It's not a problem. Bring it on. In actual fact, when our stores shut, we shut the website down as well. And the reason being was, from a warehouse perspective, we weren't set up. So we weren't set up for social distancing. So we had to take our website offline. We had to then bring it back up in browse only mode to keep interest coming in. We had to work really hard to get our warehousing and our supply chain back up and running. And, within 2 weeks, we were back up and running fully, and that is a massive achievement in itself. But what it enabled us to do is really able to see the power of the platform that we built to enable us to adjust so quickly to that demand and that change. So that was really, really key as well. So within a few hours, we had it back up browse only. Then we had it back up just to support a specific supplier or one of our supply chains. So, and then so on and so on and so on. Yeah, if we'd been on our old platform, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So it did highlight, what we built was very flexible, which is what we wanted. So that was good.
Awesome. So we've had another question which says, from a quality and testing perspective, what should be the key pointer to note while breaking down a monolithic system into more of a microservices based one? Does serverless add more complexity to it?
So I can take this one. Oh shit. So yeah, one of the challenges that I was tasked with looking at when rejoining was how do we speak to some of the challenges from replatforming from a monolith to microservices, because we carried over a lot of the same testing styles and techniques that we had there. And while going to microservices architecture actually alleviates some of the problems around testing. For example, you can develop and test your individual change relatively independently, which is much more flexible. You can do that quicker. You've got more control over it. It creates an explosion of integration points. And obviously that makes it much harder. You can't test every integration point locally when you're developing. So you rely on pushing things to the pipeline, running all of those tests. You find out later in the pipeline if something is broken. It's also a lot more challenging to manage the data needed for those integration tests across your environments. And so that style of testing is causing us some problems. It still works to catch issues. We've got those areas covered, but it's maybe not as efficient as it could be. So we want to look to a way of working that speaks to the way the developers work, how they develop independently, how they run their unit tests independently. We also want integration tests that give us that same ability. And there is a way of doing that. So we've been using and have been exploring consumer-based contract testing. And we're specifically using Pact for that. And the way that works is that it allows you to essentially run integration tests against the contract between applications, but to run them independently. They have this concept of a consumer and a provider. And the consumer is the app that's making a request. The provider is the app that's responding to it. So you start with the consumer. The consumer says, right, we've got a requirement. We need to ask you for something. You're going to return it. So we'll start a contract. And they do that by writing a test, a unit test against their client code. The result of that test is a file, a packed file that details everything they expect to send and receive. We can then share that with the application that's going to respond to it, and it can run that. It can use that test asset to run its own test and check that it's verifying properly, that it's actually responding the way it should do. So we're doing an integration test against the contract, but we're doing it independently. So we don't have to push to an integrated environment where everything's running and wait late in the day to find out whether something's broken or not. We could do it as early as possible in the dev cycle. So that works much more in line in the way you want to work with microservices anyway. So this is something that we've been exploring more, and our coverage is growing. I think now wherever we're starting new APIs or we're starting to build new stories on existing APIs, we're including Pact as part of that, and we're exploring how that works, both from a technical perspective, but also the workflow. How do we make sure we communicate properly about these changes? We don't want to just push it across technically. We want to talk about these changes to one another as well. One area that's more difficult to kind of bridge the gap is where we've got existing APIs where they don't currently have Pacts. So that's kind of something we need to retrospectively try to add in, and that's more difficult. So we're looking at that challenge and how we can add to it. But so far, we've already seen that the Pacts that we've added have added value to us. They have found issues earlier on in the development cycle than our integration tests. And while that's brilliant, the end goal is also that we can start to alleviate some of the pain that we see with our integration tests, the current legacy integration tests, and have a more sensible approach to how many of those we need, how many we need to maintain once we've got our coverage up. In terms of AWS Lambda, I'm not sure that it's more complicated. It's a different complexity over running a monolith. There are different complexities. And once you've understood what that complexity is, and you know how to manage it and how to work with it locally, it's not really a problem. So we understand the CLI tools that we need to use. We've got AWS SAM, we've got our Docker set up locally so that we can run those tests in a local Docker, simulating how it would normally run in an environment. So as long as you've got your mocks in place, and if you're using solutions like Pact for consumer contract tests, then you can do that in isolation pretty well.
Great. So here comes the next one. What impact did the front-end redesign have on the performance of your site?
Yep, I can make that one. So obviously, when we started the re-platforming, we wanted to create a new front end to our site. And I guess there was a benefit of knowing all the things you don't want to do when designing this. So we designed we designed it from the ground up, not using a framework like an existing framework as such, but it's a React SPA single page application that we decided to build. And so we ran the current site parallel with the new site as we were building. So we were able to monitor the difference as we were building, and the site performance was one of the most important things to ensure that the site performs better than what we have now. So that was clearly all the time on our view, and we had good statistics on that. And it was pretty obvious when we then switched over that it just felt like you're in a different decade. So that not many people maybe in this audience have used Dunelm in the previous life, but it's a completely different shift when we released the new app. There was also perhaps an element that we wanted to obviously get across the line quickly. So there's perhaps some of the functionality we decided not to take over straight away. So the site was also more bare, maybe. So there was an element of using new technology and maybe some reduced functionality, and that resulted in a very fast experience. Now, since then, we've added more functionality, and this kind of battle around the site performance is ongoing. As we add more things, there's a constant battle of what we should be doing correctly. And there are, for example, we have a task force in place right now that is looking at some improvements for the site, because there's a new Google search engine update coming in May that has a special focus on user experience. So in anticipation for that, so we're not quite where we want to be. I think in overall, for the most users, I think we're performing quite well, but there is a kind of a long tail of users on certain devices that don't have as good experience as we want them to have. So it is an ongoing effort, but it's clearly in a completely different category where we are now than where we were before the transformation.
Great. So although a little bit of this question has already been answered, but it comes in as, how has team collaboration and productivity been impacted by remote working, and how have you ensured this hasn't impacted any quality aspect?
Cool, I'll take that. In Dunelm, we have got different many different service providers. So we already get used to kind of like a remote collaboration, where we kind of like know what tools to use and how we kind of like overcome that. And when the pandemic came, it kind of became, business as usual, where a lot of people used to work from home anyway in the first place, and kind of like taking a bit more. And in terms of the productivity, I believe that the productivity has gone up a bit more due to the people being locked down and having more time to work. Although culturally, we make sure that we also, look into the human side of the employees and have a kind of like a personal kind of a chat to understand, the well-being of everyone and so on and so on. And when it comes to the quality, we kind of like we don't compromise the quality. The quality stays input. So every release that we are going to, conduct, we have to, it has to go through all the gates that it should go. So that, in terms of the different layers of the testing and also the involvement for our, quality engineers who are embedded to each and every team, they kind of like, do shift to left, and they make sure that, they kind of like involve in early stage. So we don't compromise quality, and quality never, kind of dropped from where it was.
I just want to add something to that. I think we've done really well to reduce the impact. There's always going to be an impact because of the scale at which the changes that were coming, the speed at which everything was changing from a pandemic perspective. What is next? I think we'd set ourselves up to ride that out and be successful. I think I mentioned in the presentation, we're just starting to see a few little cracks here and there. And that's really important, that we're able to identify those things and be open and honest about that to ourselves and say, yes, we aren't as good as potentially we thought we might be. and we need to address these issues. And that's what we're doing. We've got roadmaps of improvements we want to continue working on. And obviously when we're doing stuff at speed, there's always going to be risk to quality, and it's getting that balance right, which is always very difficult. And we have to, that's where the agreements need to come in across our engineering, quality, product communities, that everybody is on that same page, that there might be issues, but can we fix them quick and resolve them? That's kind of where we are with that.
Got it. That covers it up. So Stuart, there is one question I wanted you to take up. So it was asked while you were presenting. How have you enabled a culture of quality through your engineering, delivery, and product teams?
So I touched on this in the presentation, but I think there's a lot to it. There is a lot to it, and I think the biggest thing that we've tried to do is, firstly, we needed to. So at Dunelm, we've got a chapter model. So we've got an engineering, quality, delivery, product chapters, which are great because it really helps you focus in those verticals. But then you've got those verticals that need to come across horizontally on everything you're doing. So if we've got, X amount of crews now, and I think we've got like 12, 13, 14 crews, each made up of 2 squads, trying to get that horizontal effect is quite challenging. So the real focus has been trying to bring alignment to our chapters and ensuring that our engineering chapters, our delivery chapters are all on the same page when it comes to quality. So that's why we talked about that quality narrative. And that is very much around delivering the right thing in the right way. So we're not just talking about how we test something and we've tested something and it matches the requirements, because the requirements might be wrong in the first place, right? So it's really ensuring that what we're looking to develop is the right thing. And then that flows all the way through that whole piece. And it's just trying to shift people's mindsets around that. And I think the engineering community is sometimes the harder community to try and shift, in terms of, they're willing to do testing, but it's always a question around, they want to go quick. They want to do stuff really, really quickly. And the quality side of things is a difficult conversation to have. So the earlier you can start building quality in, so it helps with that, the next levels of engineering and testing and so on and so on. But yeah, I could talk all night about this one in particular, because it's something that we're doing. I feel as though we're doing it well, but there's still a long way for us to go as well. So I don't know whether any of the other guys want to jump in and add anything or not.
I think you did cover it.
Yeah, you did cover a lot of it, so including the presentation. So yeah, so we have next question in which says, QAOPS, is that something Dunelm believes in?
Yeah, I could take this.
All right.
Yes, it is. It's something that Dunelm believe, and every team in Dunelm, they do have a dedicated quality engineers who looks after the quality aspects as well as its operations. So we make sure that as a quality advocates that we go with the flow from idea to life, and every team is responsible for the development, testing, and delivery, or release into the production. So our quality engineers are all go through the pipeline, and they kind of like make sure that we do all the kind of quality assurance operations throughout the releases. So where we kind of own also have a lot to say in terms of the pipeline. We look after the release, testing, so on and so on, for all the different stages. So yes, that's something that we do believe in.
Great. So Jillian has asked, are your dev and product teams all AM-based? We have challenges due to the teams being based in different countries, so the time zone affects us. Is that something
you'd
like to take up?
Yeah, I think it's We don't have any so we do have remote teams. We've got engineering teams, and some of our quality engineers are based out in Portugal and with an organization called Mindera. So we don't have the same sort of time difference challenges as, say, out in India or that kind of thing. And I think that is a different challenge in the sense of ensuring that it can be an advantage, but it also can be a disadvantage. So it can be an advantage in the sense of your engineers are still working whilst other people are at home, and so on and so on, but you lose the time frames around collaboration. And that's why we consciously was more keen to have a nearshore presence in that sense, with an engineering perspective, so that we were able to collaborate and essentially just have an extension of the teams that we have in-house during the same time frames and the same time zones. So whilst we do have remote teams, we don't have the time difference challenges necessarily.
All right, so Gillian has also asked, do you have any advice to get product on board with shift left? Early walkthrough about the features.
I'm gonna ask Adam to answer that, because he's been doing a lot of this. Sorry,
Adam or Ali, I guess both of us.
Yeah, either of you.
Yes, that's a very good question. It's a very good question, because it's really important. It is really important. Anything that you want to try and do that's going to eat into time, right? You've always got to balance off improvements against products. Trying to get changes in that the business want, and sometimes those don't always seem to marry up from products perspective. So it's about having the conversations, and it's about creating opportunities where we can find a level playing ground and understand that actually a lot of the changes we want to do in terms of quality are really going to help impact how we deliver product at quality, right? It's not just about getting the product that we want, or making sure the right tests are there, but ensuring that the team's fully on board with quality all the way through, and that's going to have a massive impact in the end, even if it means that we have to spend a bit of time changing the way we've done something in the past that doesn't seem to give immediate value to the product that we're trying to deliver right now. It's super important. And we have got really good product teams. They do understand quality really well. But again, sometimes we don't always create opportunities to talk about our separate needs and requirements. So it's about setting up those conversations and having them, and the good thing with Dunelm is we can have really frank conversations. It doesn't feel like you have to be careful what you say to people, or something might not be very popular. Even if it's unpopular, you can say it and have an open, honest conversation about it. So I have a lot of faith that that's something that we can continue to improve on.
Great. So we have a question. Has Dunelm seen a noticeable change in demand through your mobile site?
Yeah, I think over 50% of our usage and revenue comes from mobile now. So mobile is by far the most important interface into the Dunelm.com. There is a slight difference in conversion. So I think the desktop converts better. So maybe people might typically browse more on the mobile still, and then prefer to buy on a desktop. The conversion on the mobile is quite stable. Tablet is less of a importance nowadays, but mobile is by far the most important thing, and all the monitoring that we do really for the site speed is mobile centric. We don't really see an issue with the desktop for the speed. I think our site is fast enough on a desktop. It's the issues that we have are around mobile.
Thanks, that helps. So we have a question coming in regarding the presentation that you went through, Stuart. So it says, it's from Angelica, and it says, you said you had to get better at Scrum and Kanban. Are you happy with the way you're using Scrum and Kanban now? What were your key learning points, and what was the most important improvement there?
I think by the nature of them, we're never happy, because there's always room for improvement. I think that the challenge that we have is, and I can't remember who it was, I think Ali may have mentioned it in terms of the autonomy, and the teams have. We've kind of the teams have kind of adopted a way of working, either the Scrum, Kanban, Scrumban, that has kind of suiting them. And that has created some challenges when we've tried to get teams working more collaboratively together, in terms of some of the behaviors and values and such like. And also, I think we've looked at probably more so over the last 12 months because of the pandemic. We've kind of moved more probably into a delivery focus, and Kanban has kind of worked well for us for that perspective, because we've needed to change quickly. We've wanted to try and do things, a bit more, I'm not going to say freely because there's still structure around it, but in terms of, more of an operational perspective, we need to do this now, guys. Let's get this through. Let's get it done. Let's get it out. And we're still trying to work out what works best. And the last year has opened our eyes to a few things. Some of our teams are just using a framework and not really understanding why they're using it, for example, which isn't a great place to be, even though it may be working for them. So one of the things that we're trying to get better at is really building foundational knowledge around what is Scrum, what is Kanban, how can it benefit you to use this over this, but also more importantly, from a quality and testing perspective, how do they differ? How can they impact the quality of what you're delivering? And how do you test differently, maybe in Scrum to what you do in Kanban, or just so that everybody is thinking more holistically around those frameworks and how they impact different roles, different people, and how we deliver. So I think, yes, we can absolutely we're better than we were on day one, but we need to continue to get better. And I think, we are still learning. And the more teams we have, the more challenging it becomes as well. So we need to try and think about, do we build more alignment, common practices, or do we keep going with empowerment and autonomy and maybe driving some teams one way or themselves driving them one way and creating gaps, which is not really what we want. So there's different challenges we need to face into with some of this, but we're better than we were. We still need to get better. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, I guess that must have answered. In case you have any follow-up questions, feel free to drop them again, and we'll be happy to take that up on this one. So having said that, we have the next one in line. And this is more about, by what metric are you, this is from Bilal, by what metric are you evaluating the use of LambdaTest? Is there any particular metric in place on which the product is being evaluated on?
So from when we did the POC with LambdaTest, one of the big things that there was two big factors. One was in terms of spin up times and how things would spin up in terms of speed to enable our tests to run. And the other one was very much around the support we would get if we had an issue. And previous providers, they were challenges for us, and that for us it wasn't about can we run the tests in these different browsers or anything like that, because there's a whole host of people out there that offer the same type of service and can do the same thing in terms of that coverage and maybe more. But it was very much about having somebody to partner with that understood our values, understood our ways of working, and would be supportive of that. And we talked a lot about that when we were speaking with LambdaTest originally. And I'm happy to say that since signing up and working with the guys, it has come across that they are able to support us very, very quickly if we have an issue. We've not had any issues in our pipelines from a speed to test perspective. And those are the key measures for us. As I say, we don't run thousands of tests a day, right? We don't need to run thousands of tests a day, but the tests we do run are very valuable, and we need them to run quickly. And if we do have an issue, we need that issue resolved quickly. And they were the metrics that we were really working towards.
Thanks.
If I can just follow on with that one.
Yeah, go for it.
Please,
I guess I would just say that with this and with everything else that we do still try to evaluate everything that we're doing continuously as part of our continuous improvement, right? Just to double check, are we using this to its full capacity? Is there still value in the way that we use this? Because quite often we, especially larger companies, can fall into the trap of this is the standard, this is the way we're working, we keep using it, and we only find out later, actually, you know what, we've caused ourselves some pain by not doing this the right way or not using it to its full capabilities. So it's something that we're trying to continue to evaluate our use of, you know, LambdaTest or our use of this tool or that tool or service provider, and just verify, you know, have we got the best out of this partnership? Can we get more from it? Do we need to involve anything else? Is there something else we do? And this ties into our UI automation and testing strategy overall. So there's a lot of questions that we have still about how do we approach our tests with this. We like the setup we've got, but we know we've got some challenges. There are certain tests that are there that perhaps don't give value that they should, and there are maybe other ways that we can test those things. So part of our continuous improvement is always to continue to evaluate based on how we're currently working and seeing if there's any cracks or anything that we need to have a further conversation with. And as Stuart said, we found that LambdaTest have been a really good partner. Whenever we have evaluated and thought, you know what, we need more, or we need to talk to them about, we know we've got some more performance testing we'd like to do through the front end. Is that something they're thinking about for their backlog? Can we join that conversation? That's always something they've been open to and had that continued dialogue with us.
Thanks a lot, Adam. It really means a lot, you know, hearing it from Adam, Stuart, and the rest of the Dunelm panel. We always focus a lot on, you know, how we can be more responsive, because we believe in, you know, deploying things faster. We are a product first company. We want to ship faster, and that's the kind of goal we have, and that's the kind of, you know, platform we are trying to deliver, so that, you know, every customer that we have on board is able to be more productive and leverage the best out of you know, their testing cycles by using our execution platform. So your words, they really mean a lot. Thank you so much. And having said that, so we have this question: being a big e-commerce, moving from one platform to ad hoc, it comes with a big set of challenges from a tech point of view. This will inevitably impact SEO from at least 2 points: page speed and the number of pages, duplications, hence their organic traffic. How was that managed?
Yeah, I can try. I think, in all fairness, we probably don't have the right person on this panel, but I'll try. I mean, yeah, absolutely, it's a massive challenge. I have a feeling we did work with some agencies to help us. I think one of the things we did do is that we carried over the taxonomy or the URLs themselves. I can't really answer how much of benefit that was in the end, but also a lot of our traffic comes from paid. So that will probably have a factor in as well. Yeah, I think that's probably the best I can do at this moment. So hopefully that's okay for now.
So probably we maybe later down the road maybe conduct another webinar with the Dunelm team and get SEO experts on board in the marketing side as well. So have a one-to-one on that side as well. So we'll take these questions up over that time. So these are definitely good questions, but we can queue this up. And definitely, as I said, like, we've noted all of these questions down, and we'll try to get back to you. As if you can just reach out to, you know, our chat support and just pinpoint that, hey, I asked this question there, and we'll be happy to help over that side. So from our perspective, and if we can get some response from Dunelm later on. So having said that, so there's this question: in terms of shifts in trend around quality and testing, what would you say are the key things to focus on and get better at? Is that something you would like to answer? Or maybe I'll repeat the question. In terms of shifts and trends around quality and testing, what would you say are the key things to focus on and get better at?
I'll try and speak to some of that. I think a little bit. I mean, my perspective, when I used to work as a contractor for a while, and I moved around a lot, and I don't know about trends, but I would always say, look at the way that you want as a culture in the company, what you're trying to achieve as a company, and also look at how you're building your software, and your quality culture should follow that, right? You can't try and have a separate initiative around how you do testing and quality that's separate from the way that you develop or your architecture or the direction that your business wants to go in. So it's more about not worrying too much about the trends in the market unless they specifically align to the way that you're doing things. Like, for example, you're going microservices, you start looking at trends at how that is a trend in the market. People are going that way. So you start looking at what are the trends around quality and testing for microservice. And we've talked about consumer contract testing as one of the solutions that help work in the correct way for microservices. But the most important thing is to talk to the way that you're working. So if you're working with a monolith, there's no point trying to implement ways of working that don't really work with that style. You have to work and test and have a quality culture that speaks to the way that you develop your software and the culture that you have in the company.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think if we look at the industry now, in terms of you scroll through LinkedIn, you look at job adverts, etc. Everything is crying out for automation, right? And it's actually quite damaging to, I think, a lot of people in terms of, the drive just purely around automation and what people expect that to give you. Automation is an enabler to all different things, right? And one of those great things is enables you to explore your products manually far better because you've got time to do it. For me, I think from a trends perspective, I would encourage people to be looking more around their balance and not looking for the silver bullet. Automation is definitely not a silver bullet. It's a means to check something that you've asked your automation to check, right? So use all the different types of tools and techniques you have to build the approach that you want to take, right? And that way you'll start getting the best quality out there. Ensure you've got a mix of people with different skills. Don't be afraid to have people in your teams that are what people were manual testers, right? I mean, I don't agree with that term personally, but don't be afraid to have exploratory testers that are have expertise in that area that mix well with engineers that are very good at automation and things like that. They're all going to help each other, and that for me is the biggest thing, and I would encourage people to be mindful of, whether you're whether you are a QA, whether you are a leader in any organization. Don't look for a silver bullet because it's not there.
Thanks, Stuart. And we have the next question coming in. Boards are addicted to the numbers. Is there a specific set of metrics you use with them that is not team level metrics?
Yeah, so I'm happy to take this one. So one of the things that we've worked really hard on actually during the re-platform and since is how we structure not just our teams, but how we structure our levels of communication. So to up the leadership stack, if you like. And actually, to be fair, we're quite a flat structure at Dunelm. So it's, it's quite easy. We really look at everybody as peers rather than managers and we very much focus on leadership rather than management. So just to make that clear to start with. But in terms of if we're reporting to the exec, then we work very closely with them to determine what is it you need from a communication perspective, right? So what the detail that we get with the teams on the ground, that is for those teams, right? What they capture as part of their outputs from their iterations, and their velocity and stuff like that is for the team. Velocity is for your team. It's not for a reporting metric further up. But what we have been doing is talking more around, everybody wants to know when something's going to land, right? Because obviously with delivering something comes revenue, which is really, really important. But what we're trying to do more of is provide what we class as landing zones, i.e., this is going to land somewhere during this time. And by the nature of Agile, as we get closer to this time, we're going to know more. So we're going to get more accurate with what that looks like. So we might turn around and go, it will land in the next 2 months. As we get closer through our sprints, we'll go, actually, do you know what, guys, it's coming in. But it's about keeping that open communication going. And we do that through a few different means. So we have a bi-weekly like a delivery update. There's a tech update every month, you know, that goes out. And as you kind of go through each of these different communications, you'll see there's a level of abstraction that comes. So we're not trying to go with loads of detail, but we did work really hard with our exec and the leadership team to understand exactly what they need, rather than just assuming you want all this stuff. And it's very much about what they need rather than what they want in a lot of cases as well. So always have those conversations to determine what's required. So hopefully that answers that question.
I believe so. So certainly. So the next one that comes in is how is Dunelm approaching for PWA, progressive web apps?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, so we do have PWA. I think it's probably a bit of a punt at the moment. We're not really focusing on it, in all fairness. I guess we're a little bit looking at how the industry is moving around the adoption on PWA. We haven't really implemented a lot of the things that you could get from notifications and offline reading and things like that. So I think for at the moment, it is something that we did as a hopeful kind of target to improve the page speed overall, and just to see what we can do with that. At the moment, I don't really know the statistics, and I'm not sure how carefully we follow them. I don't think that the adoption is very high, in all fairness. But it's obviously, we're open to it. I think from the technical perspective, we are ready to implement, but we might end up going with a native app, or yeah. So we are undecided about that at the moment, in all fairness.
All right. No worries. So we have this one coming in. Do you believe in the buzzword shift left testing? Yeah, we touched that earlier. But the question adds up to, would you rather shift right with the feature flags to test in production, or would you prefer with shift left?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a bit more about that. I mean, as I mentioned it in the presentation, that, you know, we're trying to create that whole culture of how can we learn, feed it back in. So we do both. I mean, I don't believe in the buzzword shift left testing. I believe in shifting left and shifting right, and using different techniques. I mean, you know, there's different techniques, test techniques that you can use, general collaboration techniques, you know, all these different things to shift left. And as I mentioned in the presentation, for me, you know, a lot of times when we talk about shift left testing, people just talk about the pipelines and automation and tools, but actually you can go further left, and it's much more important to go further left than that. So I think, you know, that's why we just focus on the shift left, shift right. And as I mentioned as well, the feature flag side of things is really important to enable us to put stuff out. But again, some of that does come with risk, right? So testing production does come with risk. And, you know, I don't know, Tommy, whether you want to talk a bit more about what we did from a production perspective when we were doing some load testing, but the results we got were amazing, but it did come with some risk. So we're a believer in both. But we have had to kind of have a lot of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Mitigating conversations to say it's okay for us to do this. Don't be afraid, because, you know, it will bring value. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the feature flags it's been quite powerful tool for us in the past maybe 9-10 months. I think we've done a lot, and we're using them quite extensively for different tests, and for example, A/B testing. So we have, like, for example, we have quite a big UI change coming now when we're just pushing it with the feature flag and doing some A/B testing to see what the take up is on that change. So I think that's been a very powerful tool. Yeah, and we do that even for the performance testing, like Max said. So it is definitely something I would recommend looking into. Yeah.
All right, that's great. So let me just have a look at this questionnaire. Okay, so this one's for Stuart. My experience is that team culture is generally not where the problem lies. How about we talk leadership? Do you ever have to justify the investment in quality? Do you put a cost in quality issues?
The answer is we always have to justify quality. I mean, if we have an issue, it's all about it's justified in the sense of, why do we have the issue? So I think you're absolutely right, and I think from a leadership perspective, what we've tried to do is look at how we measure that quality and how we communicate that. So often, we'll talk a lot about, teams will talk about, how many tests they've got, how many automation tests they've got, how many failing, how many passing. We don't do that. So we don't really talk about those kind of things. Those metrics are for the teams. In terms of how we measure quality, it's very much about, have we had any issues that have escaped into production that have impacted our customers, right? Now, when we talk about issues, that doesn't necessarily mean bugs, but have we released something that actually, isn't performing how we want it to perform from a customer perspective? So have we not understood what our customer needed? Because again, that means we haven't released a quality product to our customer. So that's where understanding our customer is really important. And we do a lot of experimentation in production, so using tools like Monotate and those kind of things, just to try and get an idea of what our customers want and what works best. So when we do then come to start talking about quality as as a whole, those conversations are much more customer related, and therefore it's easier to put some sort of metric or conversational value around the benefits of the quality that we're trying to build in. So I think that from a leadership perspective, that's how we're supporting our teams. And we don't push for anything in terms of reports, test failure metrics or anything like that. It's not just something we do, because the only value to that is to the teams. There's no value wider than that, right? So we only focus on what's going out into production and what has come back, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
All right. So do we have any more questions coming in? We seem to have answered a lot of them. We're still waiting, folks. We still have 10 minutes. In case you have any questions that you would like to ask further, please put through.
So I just see another one in the chat. AI doing all the automation soon is another nice fantasy that seems to be doing the rounds. Is that a question or is that just a statement? I'm not sure. I'm happy to talk about the AI thing. I think, it's a statement. There you go. I don't need to talk about it. That's great.
All right, then I guess we are pretty much covered here with the Q&A round. And in case you still have any questions, we are still live. Please feel free to ask them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer. And with that, I'll just, we'll just wait for a couple of minutes maybe. And meanwhile, I can maybe flaunt LambdaTest a little bit in the meanwhile, and just talk about. So Stuart has definitely pitched how LambdaTest has helped them grow, move, accelerate their delivery process, and ship features faster. The response and other aspects that Stuart has picked up so far. But I would just like to quickly, share my screen here a little bit and just give a basic walkthrough. Not exactly walkthrough, like I'll just continue with this slides that we had and earlier. Just give me a second. Have that slide open up. Okay. So meanwhile, anyhow, slides, it's not really important. I'll just quickly brief. So basically, LambdaTest is more of an execution platform. We give you more than 2,000 browsers on cloud to come up and, run your website. And what we are trying to solve the pain point is to deliver a cloud-based infrastructure so you don't get stuck, and you don't delay your deliverables by working out machine on your local, it's configuring your own device lab and doing a lot of consuming a lot of your DevOps bandwidth and configuring the in-house infrastructure. So what we do is we basically provide a cloud-based infrastructure where you can come up and spin any browser, any operating system that you would want. And I will just quickly share my screen now so we can have a look at the platform real quick. And I'll just give you a brief showcase in case you guys haven't been aware of it. So let me, do we have a question? Okay. So let me know if you can see my screen. And
yeah, we can. Yeah.
awesome. So this is what the platform is, and what we basically have here is a large list of browsers. We have around 2,000 plus browsers on board. You can come up, type in URL that you want to test. You can select different browsers here, and whichever versions you want to test upon. Sometimes it so often happens. It does happen that you cannot install an Internet Explorer on Safari, and similarly you cannot have an Internet Explorer on macOS. I'm sorry, and similarly you cannot have a Safari browser on your Windows machine. So in case you have that kind of situation, and definitely they are very important from a testing perspective. So you want to make sure that whatever traffic that you're getting over your website, you want to make sure that the experience is seamless. So we make it easy for you to come up and spin any machine that you want from here. So in case like I have a Windows machine here, and if I would want to see LambdaTest over the website, I can pretty much go up here, just click the start button, and that will be it. Now this is more of a real-time testing feature. What this will help you interact with the VM live, and you can come up, spin your test, go through different kind of features that we have here. Now this is one of the things that we have. The other one where Dunelm has been very rigorous about is the automation feature that we have. That what we basically have is a Selenium based Selenium grid on our cloud, and that helps you automate your Selenium scripts and run it over the same set of browsers and operating systems that were reflecting in the real time. So you can come up and open any test that you have, and by default, once you execute that test from the your system, all you need to do is just tweak your username and access key that will be provided once you log into LambdaTest. And once you configure that, you can choose the set of desired capabilities that you want. And we have a capability specific generator for that. And then you can run up the test. A screen recording will automatically happen. In case you don't want that to happen, we have a capability which you can set to false, and then you can debug and do all kinds of stuff here. So please feel free to come up and give a spin to the platform. And your first 100 automation minutes are absolutely upon us. So you don't have to worry about that. And we have a freemium plan in place, which gives you month on month, your minutes gets renewed for manual testing. So feel free. We also have, a new proposition here, which is the LT browser, and that helps you actually test your website on different mobile devices in a side-by-side view. So you can come up and have a look at the platform and see for yourself if that helps you. And with that said, I will stop my sharing because I don't want to flaunt too much of what we have here. I guess I've done a lot of that already. So do we have any more questions here? Anything new that came up with?
Doesn't look like it, Harshit.
Yeah, does not look like that. So I believe we picked up a lot of questions already. So I think we've answered a lot of queries to our viewers. And in case you have any questions or anything, as I pointed out earlier, we have a 24/7 app in-app chat support, and it's also available on our website. You can come up, drop your questions and anything you're concerned related to or around this webinar. You can find this full recording over our YouTube channel. And if you have already registered, you'll get it over your email as well. So having said that, you can let us know in case you have any questions, and we'll be happy to help. And with that, I think we can give it a good wrap here. Stuart, would you like to add something over here before we log off?
Yeah, look, thank you very much, Harshit, and to the team at LambdaTest for setting this up. It's been really great. If anybody does have any more questions, then just feel free to reach out to any of us directly. Always happy to help. And yeah, just I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope we managed to answer everybody's questions okay. We did our best. That's as best we can do. And I just want to thank these guys as well, because they're brilliant, and I'm very lucky to have them on my team. So yeah.
I too would like to extend the thanks to the entire Dunelm panel. I know you guys are busy building amazing stuff, especially when Tommy pointed out that Google is coming up with an SEO update. I know you're pretty occupied with that. That's coming up very soon. So yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedule and helping us give a brief idea and a good explanation to all of the questions that there were around Dunelm's digital transformation. It was amazing insight. I'm pretty certain our viewers must be feeling the same way, and we look forward to collaborating further with the Dunelm team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.